This week we watched Twisters, directed by Lee Isaac Chung.
I thought it was a wonderfully put together film. Of course, this is Lee Isaac Chung. The second time, he basically also shot Minority in the same location. Um, Joseph Kosinski, we've spoken about him before, from his work from, Top Gun, and everything else. Like he's really come becoming one of those guys in Hollywood, uh involved with Tron Legacy, Oblivion, like his his filmography is growing like really, really well. I thought it was like a wonderful movie. It's a legacy picture that's not burdened and tied down to the previous established film. Even though I think Bill Paxton was an original one. If you're a child in the 90s, you've probably saw it before. Like we mentioned a couple weeks ago, like you might have had nightmares about the idea of Twisters if you were a kid and you couldn't comprehend it. His son shows up as the guy in the motel who's like asking for a refund. So yeah, I thought it was a wonderful movie. Like I can kind of also relate Daisy Edgar Jones' character of Kate a little bit, being from Miami, dealing with, tumultuous weather that you kind of sometimes can't predict. And to be honest, in South Florida, tornadoes do pop up, but not as frequently as a tornado alley. So I can understand her both fear and her being mystified by this, force of nature.
I did enjoy this film a lot because I had just watched Twister. I was like really excited to see like how they were gonna do this film and how it was gonna stand apart from what had already been established. And I think they did a really good job. Like it's not like a direct sequel in that way where it's like you're following maybe the main cast characters' kids or something like that. Like it's not like that. It's like a very separate thing that I think touches on different elements that not even the original did, which I thought was really cool. Like I like the things that they were kind of playing with, people helping each other out in times of crisis and sometimes people, benefiting off of tragedy, stuff like that. I thought that was really a good thing to play around with there. So I did really like it. It has a lot of big action set pieces and stuff, which are fantastic. And I really enjoyed those. But I also think that like the characters are so compelling as well. Like you really do, I think you care about the people as you're watching them. Like I think the opening scene especially was just great for like setting you up for like what's about to happen because I think Daisy Edgar Jones' character of Kate had this very like wide-eyed, really excited to like understand this phenomenon that she's really, inspired by. And it totally like disrupting her life. Like it takes away her partner, her friends, like she completely moves out the state. It was so captivating that because I was like, I love all of these actors, but like I don't think I saw them in the promo, so I don't think they're gonna stick around for that much longer. And then they did it. Like, and that was terrible. I love Karen Shipka. Like Karen Shipka since Mad Men, like that is my girl. And she got clipped in that opening scene, like gone.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what is going on right now? So, yeah, I think it was such a good way to set the tone for the film and for also like getting you quickly invested in these new characters. I thought that was really smart.
Like Daryl McCormick just gets yeeted
Oh,
as well. Like, oh,
yeeted.
you're like, oh, I mean, and you thought you thinking, okay, they're gonna survive because they're under the overpass, and nope, just ripped. Like, yeah. I love that scene too. Like, I found it kind of odd as being a person from Oklahoma that she wasn't also completely aware of the phenomenal power of these twisters, these storms. You would at least have been aware, and how she talks about how these are people being affected, like it seemed to me like that revelation only happens after she loses like her boyfriend and her two other teammates. That I feel like that part of her character should have kind of already been there.
Maybe they did it in a way so it's like to give her an arc, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. So like she is kind of naive about it in first, and then when she faces that tragedy, she becomes more concerned about like what it can actually do.
Yeah.
And that goes to another point in terms there.
And then you're right, coming off of, we're dealing with this heat wave due to global warming, massive climate change, we had hurricanes are forming earlier, all these storms and stuff like that was happening. I mean, I think they kind of sidestepped it because they didn't want to, like, I think topics like this tend to be viewed as being too political. Like, I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was when in the Netherlands they had a flood, and they interviewed this Dutch lady, and she was like, "Oh, this only happens to poor countries," not being fully aware that due to climate change, everybody can be affected, which also coincides with the fact that Anthony Ramos, who played Javi,
Mm,
his initial business partner, him and David Cornsweet, who's playing Superman, like them going into business with who's basically a businessman who just wants to buy land for the bottom dollar after people who are devastated by, these storms who have nothing left and have to leave. Like he's buying the land for cheap underneath them, and he's just gonna end up flipping it and selling it to somebody who builds a house there, and it becomes a perpetuating cycle for him to make money. And that they kind of size the global warming issue is that because a lot of rich people will have the means to still survive,
mm.
due to these terrible storms, but everybody else won't be able to.
These natural disaster movies are really interesting, but I think I personally feel like they're more interesting when you do get political. Like The Day After Tomorrow is a very political movie.
Yeah.
Like it's really based in the politics as well as facing the natural disaster. Love that movie, think it's fantastic. Have watched it a million times. Like, so I think because that is the other side of it, right? The politics, the socioeconomic situations, all of that is involved in these things. So I understand like this is a summer blockbuster, so we're just gonna make it kind of light and fun. But like, I think that they took some steps, but like didn't go all the way with it. One thing I didn't like originally is that Javi was like when Javi goes to New York to get Kate to come back, I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Like, she has some PTSD from this. Like, I'm not really sure
Mhm.
that's gonna work. And then
Yeah.
when he tries to get her to go on a chase and she's like not doing well because she is traumatized by this event and she's getting like re-traumatized by it, he got upset. And I was like, how do you have the audacity to get upset? You were also in the situation. You also lost your friends. Like, why don't you understand that she is struggling? Why did you bring her out here? Like, I just kind of got upset about that for a little bit.
But she also could have declined.
She could have.
So
But
I
my
can
thing is like,
understand.
don't get mad at her because she's not doing what you want in that
But
moment.
my thing is like I'm giving you the parameters. Like, oh, we have three radars. Two are stationary. One is is trailing in front of the path of the twister. Like you knew what was going to happen. Like, so don't act surprised when it's like, all right, cool, we're in front of the twister. Let's drop these panels. Don't panic. Like, and it's on both of them because he knew, well aware that she had PTSD from her experience. Like, they both lost friends, but he wasn't in the storm, you know.
Exactly.
And then,
Exactly.
but she should have been upfront, but like, can I be like the trail car or the radar car and let you know where it is? There could have been a compromise there as well. Because really, all he needed from her was where's the storm forming? Like read the winds for me. Like tell me where the storm is going and be fine.
It's fine because I do really like his character. It's just that that moment pissed me off, but it's okay. We talked through it now. Another thing that almost pissed me off, and I'm glad that they didn't do this, but was that they were trying to form some type of love triangle between Javi, Daisy, and Glenn Powell. I'll just use their names since I'm using their names. Glenn Powell, Daisy, and Anthony. And I was like, I'm not really sure I buy this.
Mhm.
And also, I don't like the whole there's a fake love triangle, but we're not gonna partner her up with the brown guy because he's brown
Yeah.
and she's gonna end up with a white man. Like, I don't like that. I mean, she was dating a person of color in the beginning, but now they're trying to do this again where this is a love triangle. And I was like, I don't want it. I don't want this story. And
Yeah.
apparently there was a kiss, but Steven Spielberg, who is one of the producers of this movie, was like, don't have that in there. So they cut
Yeah.
it. And Daisy was like, yeah, it might have fell too much into the cliches. Great note, Steven. You know exactly what you're doing because
Yeah.
it would have been super cheesy. And I was really glad that she didn't really end up with either of them. So I was happy about how they ended it. I guess at that point when they were like trying to establish it, where like obviously Glenn is into Daisy, but Anthony's like, oh, do you want to hang out? And blah, blah, blah. Like I was just like, I don't like this.
Glenn Powell is kind of adopting, the social media star of the storm chasing world, I guess. And people were kind of like, oh, he's kind of dumb. Like he's being like a
A
himbo,
himbo?
which I do kind of agree. but he's like
But he's
a smart.
not.
He's not dumb. He's just
Yeah, he's
playing
not
dumb.
dumb.
He's like playing a character, and it wasn't until he reveals in that conversation with Daisy when they're at the rodeo that you go, and then they also subsequently following up them at the barn studying how the twisters form. Like, oh, this dude is smart. He's just playing a character.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say that he is playing dumb. Like, I guess I can understand maybe not the himbo commentary, but more of like the golden retriever commentary. Like, he just
Yeah,
seems like very enthusiastic and excited. Like, and
yeah.
that's a point of his social media presence is to like make these things, these tornadoes look fun and exciting and like the most adventurous. But I think that the whole purpose of him having that swag or whatever thing was for there to be that interaction between him and Daisy, for her to not be impressed by that and then to kind of strip that down as the movie continues. I feel like Glenn Powell does have like major like puppy energy. And so maybe people were just like projecting his personality that he shows us as an actor onto the character that he's playing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there's a lot more depth there. Love Glenn. Like, what a stand-up guy, you know?
People were saying, what were people saying? People saying, oh, with this movie, like, oh, he's probably not Tom Cruise, probably more Matthew McConaughey after this movie, which I could kind of see it.
But
You
you know
know,
what happened to Matthew?
he got his chance once he got a chance. Like, oh, you can actually
He did his
act.
thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's doing
So
his thing. So,
yeah.
hey, that's a good comparison. I'll take it.
That whole thing where they're in the theater, and like one of his
Mm.
teammates is almost sucked out through the screen, which I loved. Oh man, I love that shot because the fact that there's a movie playing and then it just that back window, that whole back portion of the theater just comes off, and you see the show of the tornado. I love that composition and the thought process to come up with that shot. Those kind of stuff really tickle my brain, like sparks start flying. I love that kind of stuff. Like that whole sequence, those two, I love so much.
Yeah, that was an amazing sequence. That was one of my favorites. I loved every single one of them. And what's crazy is that Lee Isaac made Minari, which is a very small
Yeah,
indie picture. I could have never imagined that he would do something like this and do it so well in terms of like just direction. But
yeah.
all of the departments did such a fantastic job. And this one, because you do have the technology to do it, I was really excited to see like how they were gonna use that to their benefit in terms of making us feel like we are also about to get sucked up by this tornado. And in that last sequence, I felt it. I was like, I'm going down. Like I'm in a movie theater. It's coming for me. Like I already felt that.
You can see like, oh, the first one is kind of not real because they are kind of also relied on a lot of miniatures as well, and they didn't really spend as much time in the storms as much.
Hmm.
Whereas this one, you can see how far technology has advanced, where they're able to actually do a lot of these scenes 100% like CGI, like in full, and still grab your attention. Like, mind blowing.
Loved all the performances. Thought everyone was so good. Like even the supporting cast, I thought they were really good. Glenn Powell for me is always just gonna he really is just like he's
Yeah.
such a superstar. But I really did love Daisy. I think Daisy really like she's such a good actress and she really held it down throughout that entire movie.
But I would have loved at least for Helen Hunt to make an appearance in this movie.
Yeah, a little cameo. I liked the story maybe a little bit more of the first one, but I think the spectacle of the second one
The
is so
visuals,
good
yeah.
that it's like I'm not gonna say which one is better, but I'm just saying like both things have bring a little different energy and I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it.
Going forward is a direction that I think Hollywood can probably go with a lot of these sequels that are coming out for nostalgia purposes. They don't have to adhere like this happened in the first movie. We have to go by the first movie. No, you can create a whole new piece of work of art that is not kind of held down of what you did before. Did you like that clip? Well, you can listen to the entire podcast because the 16 millimeter Film Crew podcast is available on all major podcast platforms.